I'm Fred Reck. I'm president of Innotech Computer Consulting. We have an office here in Bloomsburg and also an office in Hazleton. Within our industry, I have what's called a managed IT services business. And basically what that means is that we are the IT department for many different businesses, about 120 different businesses in central and northeast PA utilize our services at some different level. And so I was excited to come here today and talk, and I wanted to kind of share with you what we see here in our central PA community with the small business community. Our typical clients are anywhere from as small as 5 computers on up to about 140 computers that our largest client has. So, there's certainly different market segments of very, very large companies, out there in the world, but here in central PA, it's a lot of small businesses. And so I just wanted to basically bring what we see out there, what the risks are, but also what I perceive from a business perspective is what the opportunity is for your industry and your field, since I presume most of you are going to go out and do something in the IT field. So I titled real world examples of IT risks and data breach as seen by a local managed IT security firm. Basically, as far as who I am, I'm president of Innotech, as I mentioned. I've been in business for 18 years. I wrote 2 books on IT, on how to make business more efficient by using IT services and leveraging your IT. One of the things that I started my business because I worked with IBM. So when I got out of college, I started working with IBM and what they call their systems integration division. And one of the things that I saw, they were sending us out to very large companies. Like I said, our clients were AT&T, MCI, Honda, Mack Truck. And one of the things I started to notice is that they were really focusing on the very large businesses, but there was nobody serving small businesses doing the same type of work. So through a series of different opportunities, I was able to actually start my own systems integration division, which is now turned into Innotech. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I make clear here is that I'm going to be talking today from a business perspective. I had a great opportunity last night to have dinner with the other speakers and some of the students and faculty here at Bloomsburg, and I was blown away by the technical detail and basically how smart everybody is in this department. And that's not my expertise. They were talking about red team, blue team, and hashes and kill chains in the attack, and we deal with that stuff, but my technicians handle that, my engineers handle that, and the vendors that we partner with handle that. So a lot of what I'm going to be bringing you is from a business perspective. So one of the things is, what do we do? Our mission is to make sure that businesses run more efficiently, effectively, and profitably by leveraging their technology. So when we work with a business, we'll put ourselves in either as the IT department or we'll support their IT department with expertise. We can do things like level 1 help desk support on up to major projects, major infrastructure upgrades. A major portion of what we do is we provide the security services for them. We manage their security, patch management, intrusion detection, DNS security, things like that to make sure that they stay secure. We also do backups and things like that. Some of the different types of services we do, and this is just some stats of what we're seeing with our tools. Just another little background, both here in Bloomsburg and in Hazleton, we have a network operations center, and we have similar resources at each location so that if something happens to one of our offices, we can still provide the services to our clients from the other location. And so at our Network Operations Center, we're tracking all the systems that we manage and all the servers that we manage and all the security incidents that are on there and health statistics on that network. And so we're getting a lot of data through our NOC, and we're able to kind of see what's going on out there. Depending on time, I can give you some examples of things that we've seen over the years, but and I do have some specifically that I want to cover. But there are just some examples right here. So one of the services we provide is email protection, blocking spam for our clients. You can see that on average, 58% of all emails that come in are some kind of spam or malware attached to them. We do have some clients that have locations in other countries, that we also protect that. And when we start seeing that outside of the United States, we see the attacks much, much higher. So up to 81% of email can be spam and viruses. We apply software security patches, and then, as far as network attacks, through our firewall and premise security, we're stopping attacks. And you can see just yesterday alone, we have 360,000 attacks on the networks that we manage that we were able to stop. And we do about 1,000 backups every day of our client servers and backups and data to make sure that if something does get through and their network's taken down, that we can get them up and back up and running quickly. One of the things that as I mentioned a minute ago, so where our services stop is basically from the initial incident response. So when there's a problem, we'll come in, we'll take care of it, and we'll repair it and get the client up and running again. But when they would need to start doing the forensic analysis, we have to call in other companies, other vendors that we work with that employ a lot of people, like yourselves, that can actually dig deep, see how the attack came in, what that virus or malware was going to do on their network, things like that. So that's kind of the scope of what we do. But today, as far as what we're going to cover, I want to talk a little bit about the security threats for businesses and the damage that's being caused out there. I want to talk about number one security threat, that all the protections that I just told you about, we can't stop it. I'll go into that a little bit more detail too. Another huge one, I'm not exactly familiar with what they cover in your classes and things like that, but one of them, a huge thing right now is phishing and social engineering and Facebook and how that's used to get into a business and breach them and basically steal money from those businesses. And then talk a little bit about the opportunities that this presents to people with your expertise in the forensics and security professional field. Briefly, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the history of cybercrime before I go into some of the specifics. But basically, cybercrime is becoming very, very prominent, more prominent, and it's the main type of crime. In fact, 2016, there was more money stolen electronically than physically in the world. It was either 2016 or 2015. That was a major milestone that was in the world that had come about. But basically, I want to talk a little about the evolution of crime. So, back in the old days, if somebody wanted to steal money from somebody, they might just hide out behind a dumpster with a pocket knife, right, and jump out and tell the person, "I'm going to stick you up. Give me all your money." And so theoretically, that person would hand over their wallet, and they'd, that criminal would go home with a small payday. So as the criminals became more sophisticated and technology started coming into play, the criminals would use technology to leverage their skill sets, right? So now fast forward to the cowboy days, and when you have the trains that are going across the United States, they realized that they could stop a train, hijack a train, hop in there, and now they can stop the train, walk through, and they can stick everybody up. And now when they leave, they just held up 300 people, and their payday is even bigger. So now we fast forward into to today, where everybody's connected electronically, right? Now you can stick up 80 million people from the comfort of your own home, right? So I'm sure you guys are exposed to the news and the big data breaches, things like that. But nobody's immune from this stuff. J.P. Morgan Chase, this is a couple years ago now, but 80 million households and 7 million businesses were hacked. Account information was stolen. Credit card information was stolen. Again, years ago, there was the Target attack, Home Depot attack. All these things are happening from relatively small groups of individuals, typically in other countries, and they're able to hack in through the electronic network and steal information, personal data, and all that. And so this is definitely a money-making opportunity for the right-minded individuals. And the reason that it's becoming more and more prevalent, and so I'd probably say about 15 years ago, maybe a little more, we started to see, it went from a virus that would just do something malicious to your computer, shut it down, maybe advertise the hacker's name or something, to now money literally being taken out of bank accounts and problems like that. And the reason is that the criminals have discovered how they can actually monetize the data. Once they figure out how they can monetize this data, and what that means, if they can take control of your systems or take control of your data, and they can figure out a way to turn that into cash, now the motivation's there, right? So just some of the statistics of what this stuff is worth. A credit card can be worth anywhere from $2 to $90. A Facebook account, I just updated this information just this week. A Facebook account, you get paid $3 if you can hack a Facebook account and then sell that on the black market. So I'm going to give you a stat a little bit later to show you how much money that actually translates into. By the way, I don't mean to give you guys any ideas on how to make money here, right? That's the wrong area that I'm realizing that I'm probably advertising the wrong side of the law here. But the point is, I'm just showing where the opportunity lies to protect from these type of things. They make fake ATMs, card cloners. There's all kinds of things they can do to turn this information into money. And you guys probably know better than me even that anybody can buy the tools right online to build these kits, to build these viruses, to go on site, to go into these networks and compromise them. So it's not a hard business to get into. So again, what are we doing to protect them? What are we actually seeing? How's this happening? So brand new malware threats every day. And this is recent information from March of this year. 125,000 new malware threats are being released every day. That's brand new, never before seen. Just a little side note on that is that traditionally we used to protect things with virus-based definitions or definition-based protection, where we know what the virus looks like, we make sure all the computers are looking for that particular virus, and then we can stop the attacks that way. Well, because so much new stuff's coming out, zero-day viruses and things like that, we have to come up with new technologies to be able to stop how these attacks are happening. So I said 125 new malware threats, but in total, over 500,000 a day of threats are being released. And you guys can see these charts here. So, I mentioned about 15 years ago, so I mean it was more like 10 years ago it looks like. So 2007, this stuff goes up. I don't know if you're familiar with the logarithmic curve, but you can see that is doubling about every year on there. And it doesn't show any sign of slowing down. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunity to stop these things, a lot of opportunity in your field for how you can be a part of stopping this and protecting business. But because of this, simple virus protection or firewalls aren't enough to stop these type of attacks anymore. It's like having stop a tank with a squirt gun or something. So now a lot of times when I'm out consulting with different businesses, they say, hey, we see the news, all these big firms are at risk. I'm a small business. I've only got 50 people here. No one really wants to attack my network. And the fact of the matter, the absolute fact is that's 100% wrong. 1 in 5 small businesses is attacked each year, and that number just keeps on growing. The reason that is that the small businesses don't have the money and the resources to put in place to protect their networks. At dinner, and the gentleman that's presenting just the other room there, he works for Pfizer, and he was explaining how Pfizer has an internal team that every time there's a security incident, his team's dispatched within the organization to find out what's happening, and then they do remediation and figure out what processes they can put in place to stop it, to continually improve. Well, Pfizer is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, worldwide corporation. They can afford that, but small businesses can't. And that's when a company like mine would come in and help them in that regard. But anyway, it's low-hanging fruit. They don't have the protections in place, so they're easier to target. I'm going to give you some examples of key things. But basically, all businesses need protected. And basically, what happens when a business gets attacked? So personal information, financial records, the actual money in the bank accounts gets sucked out of the bank accounts. Corporate secrets, data, proprietary information, A lot of my clients are worried about when there's big bids. If there's a big bid due and a couple $1 million proposal that they need to do, they don't want any of that secrets to get out. They need to really protect that data to make sure that their competition isn't know anything about what they're going to be presenting. Personal information of their clients, that's huge. Business reputation's online, on the line. If a business gets hacked and all their client information is put up on the internet, that is devastating for a business. People will be much less likely to use that business if that happens. And even more importantly to a small business is their business process. The fact that they are every single day, they're trying to make sure they're getting their orders out the door, that their customers are serviced, that their sales are being driven, that people are taking the sales orders are being processed, and the cash comes in. From a business perspective, that is crucial. If there's a couple-day interruption where a business can't bring cash into their organization, that can shut a business down. It can put them right out of business. And so a lot of times, if a client's network's down and their business process relies on that network, they're in serious jeopardy of losing the business, or ruining their whole year just for a couple days being down. So that's a huge risk that small business has. All right. One of the things that I want to talk about is this concept of knowledge-based authentication. Again, I'm not familiar with what you guys learn on a day-to-day basis here, but do you guys know what knowledge-based authentication is? So, you guys have a password, right? So many times there's a password, and accounts are protected via a password. Well, that's great, because only you presumably know about that password there. But if you lose your password, and I'm kind of talking generically here, what typically has to happen when you lose a password to get your password reset? An idea on that? Absolutely. Security questions. And what are those security questions usually based around? Personal information. So, your mother's maiden name, or where did you grow up, or where did you go to high school? Right? So if I hit the forgot password button and it comes up and it says, okay, we have to ask you a series of security questions. What city did you go to high school? Now, who here can figure out where one of their friends went to high school? Right? That's about one of the easiest things to do these days. That's the concept of knowledge-based authentication. And so now in the world today, all this information, we're all putting our personal information out online, whether we want to or we don't. And so this personal information is out there. So this knowledge-based authentication is quickly becoming a liability now. And a great example of that, who here's heard of the Office of Personnel Management data breach? You guys seriously haven't? You're just being tired today, or you guys don't know about that? That's a major deal. That's a huge deal. So in 2015, 21.5 million records were stolen from the U.S. government. They suspect it was the Chinese. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Wall Street Journal put out there. But anybody in the government that applied for a secret clearance, when you apply for secret clearance with the government, whether you be in the military or whatever, you have to go through a whole battery of checks. They take your fingerprint, they interview all your friends, depending what level of clearance you're looking for. They'll go back to your high school friends, they'll interview, they'll find out your whole background. And what do you think they do with that information? Right? They're putting it in a database somewhere. And so they put all this, so all the military personnel, anybody with secret clearance, top secret clearance, they've got all this data in a database somewhere. And when you know it, one of our major, I don't want to call them enemies, but a major other country hacks in and steals all that information. Now we put that into perspective of knowledge-based authentication. That is a huge problem. Now all these people's information is out there, and it's information you can't change. You can't change your fingerprint, right? You can't change things that have happened in the past. So that's a big deal right there. I mentioned about how can you find where your friends went to high school, something like that. Social media. Social media is a huge security risk. So as you guys post things online, I'm sure everybody knows that once you post something online, it's there forever, right? And that's relatively true. But Facebook, for instance, the 1.2 million Facebook accounts are hacked every single day. And that's also, I looked that number up for this presentation. I give security presentations regularly, but that's another number that has been doubling every year. I showed you that logarithmic curve of the malware attacks, the breaches that are happening. In 2014, when I first started using this slide, that number was 160,000. Actually, it ended 2000. That was data from 2013. Then it went up to 300-some thousand. Then it went to 600,000 last year. In 2015, it was 600,000. And today it's 1.2 million hacks a day. That's doubling every single day. These accounts are being hacked, and now they have all that personal information about you. So social media is a huge risk. And there's just to drive this point home, that the data is out there. I'll kind of go through this quick. But there is services out there that, from a marketing perspective, if I was in the business of selling something, let's say I was selling automobiles, and I was selling high-end automobiles, and I knew that my target customer had certain attributes about them. There's data. This is a company right here. It's called Axiom. You can go in and you can pull some information in here. This is some of the data that they have on actual people. You can say, hey, I want somebody who cares about the environment. I want to know if they've written any politicians recently. These are actual criteria you can put in there, and then boom, they give you a list of all these people. And then you can tailor your marketing information, either your marketing information or your social engineering phishing scam towards that person specifically. And so I mentioned about the number one risk that we have out there, that antivirus, email protection, firewalls, intrusion detection, all this stuff, we can't stop human error, right? And so that's the number one compromise that we see in our networks. This slide's probably out of order here, but I talked about the Facebook breaches. If you guys care, you can go to facebook.com/privacy, and they'll tell you about what they do with your data and what you can do to protect it. And then if you want to make sure that you're securing it best, a company called Sophos, that's a security company, has a good white paper out there if you want to check that out. Those are some good ways to make sure you're doing best practices. Who here's heard of ransomware? Good. I was just hoping everybody has heard of that. So there's a little joke. It's right there on the screen, but it says, what type of writing here? This is for you. What type of writing pays the most? Right? Ransom notes. But thanks for that. I appreciate that. That's so that's ransomware is on the rise. And so what happens is basically somehow or another a network is breached, software gets put on the network, and it goes out and it encrypts through encryption technology, locks all the files. Again, I expect you guys are familiar with how powerful these encryption ciphers are now. They're unbreakable. And so basically, imagine yourself, you're a business, you're doing a couple $1 million a year, you got all your data, it's really important, and you need to have your orders coming in and out so you can pay your payroll, pay your bank loans, pay your vendors, all that. You can keep going. And you come in one day, turn your computer on, you don't have any of that stuff. Right? Now all of a sudden you're sweating bullets. And you can either hire somebody to try to break this, reverse engineer this unbreakable code, or you can just pay the ransom. And they let you, and then they'll unlock your files for you. And so again, that is a huge opportunity for the bad guys, right? A couple examples. I promised I was going to give some examples of real world stuff that we've seen. by the way, I belong to an organization of about 300 different IT service providers. And so we'll meet 4 times a year down in Nashville, and we share war stories. So these haven't all been ones that we've seen directly, but these are like best friends of mine that have dealt with some of these things. And this is one that he had handled. One was an oil company, and I got my notes here. That's why I just want to make sure I get the notes right. And basically, they had connected their domain controller. Everybody have a somewhat familiar concept of Windows networks and how, okay. So they had their domain controller attached right to the internet as a terminal server. Okay, so you're already laughing, right? Well, their administrator username was administrator, and it was a password was such that a elementary school kid could break the password. And so basically, they were able to. So there was. But before they called my friend in, they got their files encrypted, and I think they had a backup, and they were able to undo it. But then a week later, boom, it happened again. And they weren't sure how this was coming in. But basically, it turned out that they got their files encrypted, and they didn't have a backup that they could recover from them. And so, has anyone dealt with ransomware? Okay, so it started out, it was like an automated process. Hey, you have 48 hours to send this many Bitcoins and we'll unlock your files. It was all background stuff, it was an automated process. Well, they wanted $3,000 in Bitcoins, and to pay that, you say, okay, send the $3,000 and this particular sample file, and we'll unlock your files for you. And what they did, they take that sample file and then they look at the type of data that's in this file. And when they saw what type of data that they had encrypted, all they knew is that they went in there and they encrypted the files. But when they saw how much data was there, they emailed back and they said, you know what, thanks for the $3,000. It's going to cost you $27,000 now to get your data back. And so basically they negotiated back and forth, and they were able to get out of it for $11,000 total. But they had to pay $11,000 over, and they were down for 2.5 days to get that back. That's just one example of ransomware there. Another one was an electrical contractor, and they had a similar scenario where we checked the event logs. We were able to see that they were being brute force attacked on their passwords. And what had happened is, through an automated process, and again, you guys might know more about this than the details of this than I would know, but through some automated process, they were brute force attacking this, trying to find the password. Logged in for 1 second and then logged out. And then 5 minutes later, a person logged in, because we could see 5 minutes later, someone logged in, they were in there for a couple minutes, and they deployed their software on that network, locked all the files. That client had a backup, and so we were able to figure that out and get that remedied. But there's another example of they use automated tools, figure out what the password is, and then they, pry on their screen. They said, oh, we got one, and they automatically logged in and did their work on it. So that's just an example of some ransomware types of things that we see. And you see a lot of that on the news, but that's a very popular one. Another a vector that we see that these come in, I just told you about brute force connecting to the terminal server, is through spam. And again, this goes into that social engineering thing. So spam is the #1 vector of breaches that come in. They'll get an email, someone clicks on the email, and it deploys. By the way, in case you guys don't know this, but if you're getting spam and there's an unsubscribe button on the bottom, it's typically a bad idea to click the unsubscribe, because all that really does is confirms to them that you're a real person. And now they know that's the right email address for you, and then they end up selling your email to other people to send you stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about phishing and spear phishing. And this is all done through, basically through spam. So phishing is generally, they'll send out an email with an attachment to just people they don't know. And it might say something like, hey, your package, here's your tracking number for your package. It's been delayed. Please click here to find out your new date of delivery. And so they're hoping that you click on that. And so that's just general phishing. That's just a blanket type of email that they send out. Here's an example of one that I got that was like that. It was a flower place, and it was a couple days before Valentine's Day. And they're like, hey, you have a credit here, you know, click here. And of course, I didn't click on it, but it was just an example. I thought I'd put it up because I'd seen that directly. But one that is more dangerous is the spear phishing, and it's called the president scam. And this is where they use it, social engineering. I told you about Facebook and LinkedIn and all this. All that data is out there. And so what they do is they will research a company. So they have a database of big companies. They look for a certain size company, and then they go on LinkedIn or any of these databases, and they find out who the financial officers in that company are. And they find out who the financial officers are. And then, and let me show you this example here. I'm going to show you an example of the emails, and I'm going to show you how crafty they were doing this. So the president is Mike Mann, and the director of finance is Linda Higgins. And the name of the company is Maritime DW. I can't remember. A boat manufacturer. And so you can kind of see the domain name up here. And he's like, hey, are you available to make a wire transfer payment? He says, Mike. And she emails back, says, yes. And he says, great. Hey, here's the information. Can you please send $60,000 to this bank account here for me? And let me know as soon as it's been done. And so she's like, that's a lot of money. And it just so happened, her office was directly across the hall from his office. So before she hits the send button on the $60,000, she gets up and she's like, hey, Mike, she's $60,000, you really want to send $60,000 today? We're going to have to transfer some money around. He's like, what are you talking about? And it turned out, this here is Linda. This is the real employee here, M-A-R-I-T-I-M-E-D. This is his domain name, M-A-R-R-I-T-M-E-D. So what they did is they targeted this company. They went out and they bought the domain name, and they set up an email address, and they basically made it look like, you know, they were sending information inside the company trying to get that happen. They did not send the money. They didn't lose the money. There was no real breach. There was no internal network breach to make that happen. That was all done externally through social engineering. We do see a lot of this ransom, a lot of the ransomware, our clients or people that call us who aren't clients yet, but they've been breached, we'll often see that it's oftentimes the finance people that are getting these emails that end up deploying the payload, and then their computer is the one that starts, and the files get encrypted. First thing that the software does is looks for network shares and goes out in the network shares and locks them up, because they know that's where the valuable information is, the stuff the whole company uses. Does anybody have questions about that? So basically, you know, how do businesses protect themselves? I'll just go through this real quick, and then I'll go into kind of how I see the opportunities for your field. But you know, a lot of security awareness training. There's some tools there that people can use. Having a good technology usage policy for the company. Two-factor authentication. You guys are all familiar with two-factor authentication, I hope. That's just going to continue to be more and more popular. Every password reset's going to be sending a text to your phone. If it's not already. Check your own social media security settings, and then you know, even some people will get credit monitoring on themselves. I know I have it on myself. That way, if people are opening accounts under your name, you can see it right away. That's another thing. There's just some other tools here. Now, I mentioned I want to talk a little bit about the opportunities for the IT security professionals. So, as I said, you know, what we do, and a lot of companies like myself, we put the security systems in place. And I contract out a lot. I use different vendors, different software tools to protect the client networks. I learned about how it does it from a business process, and we put those in place. We make sure standards are in place, things like that. But when there is an incident, and there's an incident response, and there's a loss or even a potential loss, we need to have professionals come in place, people that can actually go in, see what code was happening, how it was deployed, things like that. So this incident response is going to get more and more popular. At dinner last night, I was just having a conversation. A lot of my clients here in Central PA, once we recover them and we get them up and running again, remember I said their main concern is making sure they can get their orders out the door and they can get their receivables coming in and the cash coming into business. Once they get that, they don't really care, because that's the small businesses that, you know, they just want to keep things running. But the very large company, I mentioned about the Pfizers of the world, things like that, they want to know exactly what happened. They do not want it to happen again. They don't want that disruption to happen. So they want to reverse engineer these attacks and make sure they're specifically protected from future attacks like that. Well, like any industry and any trend in business or in the world, you saw those curves, those exponential curves that I was showing. That's going to get driven down through the market, and smaller companies are going to need to be able to have those type of services for them. So personally, I believe that an incident response and being good with that and those processes is going to be an opportunity that is going to be growing over the next couple of years, and that more and more companies are going to need that. As there's more and more attacks, there's going to need to be, you know, more and more people who can actually get in there and analyze these attacks and how they happen. And also, I had also mentioned earlier that back in the old days, we would just put, you know, antivirus on the computer, make sure the antivirus is updated, and pretty much, you know, we're set. Patch management from Microsoft, antivirus loaded on the systems, definitions up to date. Well, hopefully some of these examples I showed you is that the attacks are getting more sophisticated and more dynamic, and that there's a whole other thing with zero-day viruses. I'll just real briefly, where there's kits out there, you can build the virus, you buy the tools to build the virus. Now you have a brand new virus, none of the virus definitions can stop. You have a database of people you send it out to. You can go online and you can rent the network of host computers, zombie computers, to deploy your attacks on the database that you just bought. And then they even have payment networks that you can rent. And so so there's always these zero-day viruses are becoming more and more sophisticated. And so what we're seeing from my perspective in the field is now the security solutions that are the most effective are the ones that look at how these breaches are happening. What is the methodology that they use, or, you know, how these viruses act in a certain way. So, you know, we've recently tested, implemented, it's been 2 years now, we put it across all our client networks. Now we have a tool that knows where all the bad host computers are out on the internet, and so anytime any of our client computers tries to start communicating to these host computers, it shuts it down, doesn't matter what type of communication that there is. And so that's just kind of an example where now we were first looking for the specific virus, now we're looking for how the computers are communicating to the network of bad computers that are known out there. And then even on another layer to that is that now as a new computer maybe becomes a host computer that's running this malicious code, the first thing that they know that this computer will come online and it'll do a certain number of procedures that all these other ones have done, and now so it can actually, as soon as a bad host computer comes online, it tags it as such and adds it to the list of blocked IP addresses that these computers can't connect to anymore. And so that's just one example of the sophistication of the protections growing like that, and that's where I think, you know, with artificial intelligence, the growth in that, you know, we're going to have I don't even know what, you know, 5 years, 10 years from now what the security landscape is going to look like. But it's definitely opportunities for people with skill sets such as yourselves to get out there and really be on the right side of the fence for that. By the way, all these criminal activities I've been describing, if you tried to pull any of that inside the United States, you'd be shut down and arrested and sent away for life. So, not, well, I don't want it to be life, but you'd be sent away for a long time. Most of it comes from like Ukraine, from the Asia countries, things like that, where we can't extradite. We can't get in there and extradite them because they know where the attacks are coming from, they know where the bad guys are coming from, but they can't, the laws aren't there to pull them out and stop them. That's why we can't stop it. And it's not like we're going to shut down all the network traffic from a certain country coming into our country, things like that. And on that topic of opportunities, just to you know, I figure I'd put a plug in for Inotech here. Inotech's always hiring, looking for good people. Currently, we have some sales opportunities at Inotech, and also we're looking for network engineers. I know we have a booth downstairs. Anna is here from Inotech. She's in our marketing department. If anybody has any questions about what we do or opportunities that are in Inotech, please reach out there. We do hire interns, and certainly when you graduate, opportunities are there for that. And the last thing, I don't know if you know, there's anybody businesses here or whatever, but on June 7th, we're having a technology expo in Hazleton, PA, where we're going to have about 100 different businesses and IT managers there. So that's just another thing that's coming up I thought I'd alert you guys to. That's what I had prepared for today. I'm happy to take questions. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes. We have not implemented that particular method, but I've also seen that. And that's probably what's going to happen. I mentioned about that protection where they're looking for the bad hosts on the internet. That's protection at the DNS layer. So we basically are taking over clients' DNS, and then and I think that's probably going to evolve into what you just said. But essentially, that technology we're using is kind of like it's blacklisting these servers out on the internet. But at some level, I'm pretty sure that whitelisting is going to come in. We do have some clients that they'll pick certain computer systems that they don't want just being able to go on the internet and do whatever they want. So maybe it's a front desk computer or a very important, like maybe an accounting computer, something like that. They don't want you to go anywhere. So we will just on a case-by-case basis only allow them to go to whitelisted sites. But that's just on a case-by-case basis right now. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, I would say no. And I actually, as I was tweaking this presentation for you guys today, a lot of times my audience is business owners, right? So I pulled a lot of the stuff out, but I pulled that slide out that you just described right now. It is very easy to go online. You can have an advertisement up on Google on thousands of people's web on browsing. You can have an ad up in 10 minutes probably. And so what happens is that these display ads will have either some kind of pixel technology or just quite frankly the page that it goes to has an exploit kit loaded on it. And so as a criminal, I can put the page on. I can create an advertisement that says, hey, today only $100 iPads. Click here. And so everybody's like, oh, yeah, and they click and they think that they might be at a totally legitimate web page, USA Today or Fox News or whatever the heck they're reading, and they get an ad here that says $100 iPad. Boom, they click it. So they're downloading a virus. So if it was completely whitelisted, yeah, they wouldn't be able to go to that site. But my point is that it's really easy to use display advertising to promote your viruses. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's probably a good strategy. Yeah. What other questions do you guys have? Yes, sir. Mhm. I don't see that growing, and I'm not exactly sure if we can, how we would implement that, because a lot of these pages, you know, the ad space is already on that page. So if we're able to go to that page, they're serving up from a third party what's in that space, and I'm not aware of technologies to block it. Even though I'm allowed to go to that page, that's the whitelist question I thought he was asking. I'm allowed to go to that page, but how would I not see what that page is serving up? I don't know the answer to that. But certainly, it could, like I said, things happen so fast in this industry, it wouldn't surprise me. But that's a definite vector where threats are coming through. Yes, sir. They do. There's a company called WebRoot. We use a company called OpenDNS, and they use that technology a lot. And that's where I said about the dynamic nature of those attacks. They use the heuristics more so than the definition based. And you're right, and that's why I said the number one error is, or the number one is the human error. Is the human error, or the users not using the technology properly, or not being properly. It's usually not being properly trained. People aren't being malicious when they're using their work computers. They just don't know what not to click on. And so we actually will give, we give classes to our customers, to their employees. We'll have them. We'll get a conference room and have them come in, and we'll give a similar presentation as this on what not to do and what risks are out there. So I really appreciate you guys coming out, part of this talk here. Like I said, we have a booth downstairs if anybody has any questions. I'll be around for a couple hours if anybody has any questions for me. I'm glad to see all the participation. I'm glad this conference exists here, and hope everybody has a great day. Yeah, take care.